Magandang araw! Sama-sama tayong matuto sa Teacher Sal Learning Resource Channel. Revised K-12 Curriculum Math 3 Quarter 3 Week 1 Data and Probability. For Day 1, collect data from a simple experiment with a small number of possible outcomes. Example given, rolling a die or tossing a coin, and organize data gathered in a table. Look at this coin. This is a fair coin, which means each side has an equal chance of landing face up when you flip it. Which side is the head and which is the tail? Describe what you see on each side. Now, toss the coin 10 times and record what happens each time. Here's the possible result. What results did you get when you tossed the coin 10 times? The possible results were heads or tails. Let's be familiarized with these terms. Collect, data, simple experiments, possible outcomes, outcome, table, tally. What did we do with the fair coin? We tossed it and recorded the result of each toss. What you did is called an experiment. What is an experiment? What word comes to mind when you hear the word experiment? Possible answers might include test, trial, activity, investigation. An experiment is a test or activity that is often repeated several times to get reliable results. How many times did we toss the coin? We tossed the coin 10 times. The repeated tests are called trials. What are the results of each toss? The results of an experiment are called outcomes. Experiment, tossing a coin, number of trials. 10. Possible outcomes, heads, tails. Organize the gathered data in a table using tally marks to show how many times each outcome happened. How many times did heads appear? Heads appeared 6 times. How many times did tails appear? Tails appeared 4 times. The number of times an outcome happens during the experiment is called its frequency. Frequency is the number of times an outcome happens during the experiment. Which table easily gives us the results of tossing the coin? Why? The new table with the frequency column presents the results or data more clearly and in a more orderly way. It is important to organize data collected in an experiment. It makes it easier to see important information. It helps us compare results more easily. It makes it simpler to share the data with others. Prepare the following materials: 3 dice, 3 boxes, each containing 12 balls, 4 green, 3 red, 2 blue, 2 yellow, and 1 black, 6 sheets of Manila paper or cartolina, each with a table written on it, 6 markers. Form 6 groups. 3 groups will roll a die and the other 3 will pick a colored ball from a box. Each group will record the results in the table given to them. Pre-activity, Experiment 1, Rolling a Die. Clear your working area of any obstacles. Take turns in rolling the die 20 times. Record the outcome in the table after each roll. Experiment rolling a die. Number of trials 20. Table. Experiment 2. Picking a colored ball. Take turns picking a colored ball from the box, 20 times in total. Do not look inside the box when picking a ball. Return the ball to the box before the next turn. Record the outcome in the table after each pick. Experiment picking a colored ball. Number of trials 20. Here are some possible outputs. Experiment rolling a die. Number of trials 20. Experiment picking a colored ball. Number of trials 20. What does the table show? What are the possible outcomes when rolling a die? Which number appeared the most in each group? Which number appeared the least in each group? Why do you think the results are different or the same across the groups? Which number appeared the least in each group? Why do you think the results are different or the same across the groups? What does the table show? What are the possible outcomes when picking a colored ball from the box? Which colored ball was picked most frequently in each group? Which colored ball was picked least frequently in each group? Why do you think the results are different or the same across the groups? What is an experiment? An experiment is a test or activity that is often repeated several times to get reliable results. What are trials? The repeated tests are called trials. What are outcomes? The results of an experiment are called outcomes. What is frequency of an outcome? Frequency of an outcome is the number of times that outcome happens during an experiment. Example, tossing a coin, head or tail. Rolling a die, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 dots. Picking a colored ball, green, red, blue, yellow. How can we organize the data we collected? We can organize the collected data in a table using tally marks to show how many times each outcome happened. For your formative assessment, read and understand the problem. Brianna wants to pick her next short story to read. She has 4 options and uses a spinning wheel labeled with each one. She spins the wheel 15 times and will read the story that comes up the most. The stories are Pilo the Pilandok, Maria and Her Math Class, My Kitten Friend, The Birth of the World. The data below shows the results of the 15 spins. Organize the given data by completing the table below. Based on the results, which story will Brianna read next? Here are the expected answers. Brianna will next read Maria and Her Math Class. For day 2, present data in a single horizontal bar graph. What experiment is done in the assessment? The experiment involves spinning a wheel. What are the possible outcomes of the experiment? The possible outcomes are Pilo de Pilandok, Maria and her math class, the birth of the world, and my kitten friend. How many trials did Brianna do? Brianna did 15 trials or spins. How did you organize the data collected from spinning the wheel? We used tally marks to record the occurrences and then counted the total for each short story. Our lesson purpose is to present data in a single horizontal bar graph. Let's be familiarized with these terms: data, experiment, bar graph, single bar graph, outcome, vertical axis, horizontal bar graph, bars, labels, scale, categories. In the last lesson, you organize your data in a table using tally marks to show how many times heads and tails appeared, and then you counted the total for each. For head, we have 6. For tail, we have 4. Today, you will learn another way to show your data by using a bar graph. What is a graph? Possible answers may include picture, chart, numbers, lines, colors. A graph is a visual representation of data that makes it easier to understand and compare information. What is the table about? The table shows the results of an experiment where a coin was tossed 10 times. Title of the graph. It tells what the graph is about. The title is Tossing a Coin. What are the possible outcomes of tossing a coin? The possible outcomes are heads and tails. What do we call the number of times an outcome appears? It is called the frequency. The axes on the left and at the bottom are called the vertical axis and horizontal axis respectively. The vertical axis shows the categories, while the horizontal axis shows the frequency of each category. How many times did heads appear in the experiment? Heads appeared 6 times. Count 6 units bars along the horizontal axis for heads and shade those bars. How many times did tails appear in the experiment? Tails appeared 4 times. Count 4 unit bars along the horizontal axis for tails and shade those bars. This graph is called a bar graph. Specifically, it is a horizontal bar graph. A bar graph is a picture that shows data, where bars are used to represent the number of occurrences of each outcome or category. Why do you think this graph is called a horizontal bar graph? The bars are placed sideways from left to right. A horizontal bar graph uses bars that extend from left to right, making it easier to compare the values of categories. Title of the graph tells what the graph is about. Horizontal axis, the line that goes across. It shows the numbers or how many times an outcome happened. Frequency. Vertical axis, the line that goes up and down. It shows the categories being compared. Categories, the labels or names along one axis that tell what each bar represents, like heads or tails in a coin toss. Each bar represents one category. Scale. The set of numbers used to represent data on an axis. It shows how we count the data, like by ones, twos, fives, tens, etc. In the given bar graph, the scale counts by ones 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. Interval, the space or distance between each number on the axis. It is related to the scale. In the given bar graph, the interval or bar graph should be uniform or equal. Bar, the rectangle that shows how many times something occurred frequency. The longer the bar, the more times it occurred. Key points to remember when constructing a horizontal bar graph. Decide on a title for the bar graph. List the categories or possible outcomes on the vertical axis. Determine the scale of the graph and label it on the horizontal axis. Shade the correct value for each category or outcome based on the data. Use consistent spacing between bars. Emphasize that the bars should not be too close together. Ensure all bars are of equal width and their lengths correspond to the data they represent. Stay in the same 6 groups from the previous activity. Each group will get 1 grid and 1 marker. Look at the table you completed during the 20 trials activity from last time. Use that data to make your own horizontal bar graph. Table 1, rolling a die 20 times. Table 2, picking a colored ball 20 times. Sample graphs for Table 1. Sample graphs for Table 2. What is a bar graph? A bar graph is a picture that shows data, where bars are used to represent the number of occurrences of each outcome or category. What are the parts of a bar graph? The parts of a bar graph are title, bars, axis, labels, and categories. What is a horizontal bar graph? A horizontal bar graph shows data using bars that go from left to right, making it easier to compare categories listed on the vertical axis. For your formative assessment, read the situation, then construct a horizontal bar graph using the data from the table. Teacher Stella asked Grade 3 Sampaguita learners to choose their favorite Larong Pinoy from the list. The table below shows the results. For the Larong Pinoy, we have Luksong Tinik, Patintero, Tumbang Preso, Piko. Draw the horizontal bar graph. Here are the expected answers. For Day 3, present data in a single vertical bar graph. What title did you give your bar graph? Why did you choose that title? The title, Favorite Larong Pinoy of Grade 3 Sampaguita, was chosen based on the given data. What labels did you write on the horizontal and vertical axis? We labeled the horizontal axis as frequency and the vertical axis as Larong Pinoy. What categories did you write on the vertical axis? We wrote the different games Luksong Tinik, Patintero, Tumbang Preso, and Piko. What scale did you use on the horizontal axis? We use a scale that counts by ones. What did you consider when drawing the bars? We made sure that the bars were evenly spaced, with no bars too close together. All bars had the same width, and their lengths matched the number of votes each category received. Our lesson purpose is to present data in a single vertical bar graph. Let's be familiarized with these terms. Data, bar graph, vertical bar graph, axis, labels, scales, categories, horizontal axis, vertical axis, bars. In your previous lesson, you constructed a horizontal bar graph on tossing a coin. For today, use the same data to construct a vertical bar graph. Can we use the title of the horizontal bar graph for the new graph? Why? Yes, we can use the title Tossing a Coin for the new bar graph because it uses the same data. What are the possible outcomes of tossing a coin? The possible outcomes are heads and tails. Label the horizontal axis with the word outcomes. Write heads and tails as the categories along this axis. See the illustration for reference. What do we call the number of times a head or a tail appears? It is called the frequency. Label the vertical axis with the word frequency. Then write the numbers 0 to 8 along this axis, counting by ones. How many times did heads appear? 6 times. How many times did tails appear? 4 times. Shade the bars that correspond to the data for each outcome. The expected graph is shown. You have just constructed a vertical bar graph using the same data. Label the parts of the vertical bar graph. Why do you think this graph is called a vertical bar graph? The bars stand upright or vertically, from bottom to top. A vertical bar graph uses bars that go from bottom to top, making it easier to compare the values of categories. Observe the two graphs. What are the similarities of the two graphs? Here are possible answers. Both show data using bars to represent values. Both graphs have the same title, labels, and data. Both graphs have vertical and horizontal axes. Both graphs show the same categories and frequencies. What are their differences? The labels are positioned differently. In a horizontal bar graph, the frequency is on the horizontal axis, and the categories are on the vertical axis. In a vertical bar graph, the frequency is on the vertical axis, and the categories are on the horizontal axis. The bars are oriented differently. In a horizontal bar graph, the bars go from left to right. In a vertical bar graph, the bars go from bottom to top. Both bar graphs can be used to display the same data. Look at these graphs. Both horizontal and vertical bar graphs can be used to show data, but one may be more appropriate depending on the type of data. Horizontal bar graph, there are many categories or the category names are long. The data has no particular order. Example given, types of animals. There are fewer categories and the names are short. To easily compare how high or low the bars are, the categories have a natural order: first, second, third. For Activity Sheet 1, Vertical Bar Graph. Construct a vertical bar graph based on the data provided below. The title is Classroom Cleaning in Grade 3 Molave for 1 week. Here is the expected answer. What is a vertical bar graph? A vertical bar graph shows data using bars that go from bottom to top, making it easier to compare the values of categories. What are the parts of a bar graph? Its parts are title, labels, bars, axes, and categories. What are the similarities and differences between horizontal and vertical bar graphs? When is one type of bar graph more appropriate to use than the other? Horizontal bar graph best for long labels. Example given, luksong tinik, or many categories. Works well for data that doesn't have a specific order. Example given, types of animals. For vertical bar graph, best for short labels. Example given, heads, tails. Fewer categories. When comparing numbers over time, example given, months, years. Works well when there is an order to the categories, example given, first, second, third. Read the situation, then construct a vertical bar graph using the data from the table. Teacher Marga asked the learners of Grade 3 Ipil-Ipil about their favorite subjects. She recorded their answers in the table. For subjects, Math, number of learners 11, Science 7, English 8, Filipino 9, History 5. Here is the expected answer. For Day 4, read and interpret data presented in a horizontal and vertical bar graph. Take a look at these graphs. What are the similarities of the two bar graphs? Both graphs have a title. Both show data using bars to represent values. Both have two axes, one for categories and one for frequency. Both make it easier to compare values across categories. What are their differences? The graphs show different data. The labels are positioned differently. In the horizontal bar graph, Favorite Larong Pinoy of Grade 3 Sampaguita, the frequency is on the horizontal axis, and the categories are on the vertical axis. In a vertical bar graph, Favorite Subjects of Grade 3 Ipil-Ipil, the frequency is on the vertical axis, and the categories are horizontal axis. The bars are oriented differently. In a horizontal bar graph, the bars go from left to right. In a vertical bar graph, the bars go from bottom to top. Our lesson purpose is to read and interpret data presented in a horizontal and vertical bar graph. Let's be familiarized with these terms: horizontal, vertical, bar graph, interpret, list, most, highest, tallest, shortest, smallest, more than. What is the graph about? It shows the favorite subjects of Grade 3 Ipil-Ipil learners. How do you know? The title of the graph tells us what it is about. The title of the graph gives information about what the graph represents. What are the favorite subjects of Grade 3 Ipil-Ipil learners? The favorite subjects are math, science, English, Filipino, and history. How do you know that these are the favorite subjects? These are the categories shown in the graph. In a horizontal bar graph, the categories are written on the vertical axis, while in a vertical bar graph, they are written on the horizontal axis. Which subject is most liked by the learners? Most learners like math. How do you know that most learners like math? Math has the tallest bar among the 5 subjects. Which subjects are liked by the same number of learners? None. Why do you say so? There are no bars having the same height, indicating that no subjects are liked by the same number of learners. The category with the tallest or longest bar represents the most liked subject or the highest number of learners. Conversely, the category with the shortest or smallest bar represents the least liked subject or the fewest learners. If 2 or more categories have bars of equal height, it means they are liked by the same number of learners. How many learners like history? There are 5 learners who like history. How do you know? The end of the bar tells you the number of learners. For history, it is 5. Which subject do more learners like, science or English? More learners like science than English. How do you know? Science has a taller bar than English. How many more learners like science than English? 1 more learner likes science than English. How do we compare the data of the different categories? We compare the data by looking at the length or height of the bars. The longer or taller the bar, the more learners like that subject. We can also compare the difference in the number of learners by seeing how much longer or taller or shorter one bar is compared to another. Look at these graphs. What is the total number of learners in each class? Akasha 40 learners, Dow 40 learners. How did you get the total? We added the number of learners who chose each sport in the class. Which sport is the least popular for both classes? Swimming is the least popular sport in both classes, as it has the fewest number of learners. How many more learners play basketball in Dow than in Akasha? Dow has 14 learners who play basketball, while Akasha has 11 learners. So, there are 3 more learners who play basketball in Dow than in Akasha. Which sport has the closest number of learners between the 2 classes? Volleyball, since the difference in the number of learners between the 2 classes is only 1 learner. If you combine the number of learners who like badminton and swimming in both classes, how many learners would that be? The combined total number of learners in both classes who like badminton and swimming is 30. Which sport is the second most popular if we combine the number of learners in the 2 classes? Why? If you combine the number of learners from Akasha and Dow who play volleyball, the total is 25 learners. The total for basketball is also 25 learners. This means both volleyball and basketball are equally the second most popular sports with 25 learners each. In which class has the highest number of learners who played basketball? Dow has the highest number of learners who played basketball, with 14 learners, compared to Akasha, where 11 learners played basketball. In which class did the most learners play volleyball compared to other sports? It is Akasha, where 12 learners played volleyball, which is the highest number compared to other sports in Akasha. Basketball 11, badminton 10, swimming 7. In contrast, in Dao, most learners played basketball compared to the other sports. Basketball 14, volleyball 13, badminton 8, swimming 5. What do we read if we want to know what the graph is about? We read the title of the bar graph. How do we know what the categories are? We look at the category labels in the bar graph. The categories are written along the vertical axis for horizontal bar graphs and along the horizontal axis for vertical bar graphs. How can you tell which category has the greatest number without counting? It has the longest or tallest bar among the categories. How can you tell which category has the least number without counting? It has the shortest or smallest bar among the categories. How can you tell which categories have equal numbers without counting? They have the same length or height of bars. How do we compare the data of the different categories? We look at how shorter or smaller or longer or taller the bars are. If two or more bars have the same height or length, that means they represent the same quantity. For your formative assessment, read the situation below and study the vertical bar graph that represents the data. Then answer the questions that follow. At the school fair, Grade 3 Kamagong learners sold 4 types of fruits: apples, bananas, dalandans, and mangoes. The bar graph below shows the number of pieces sold for each fruit. Here are the questions. Which fruit was sold the most? Which fruit was sold the least? How many more mangoes were sold than bananas? What is the total number of fruits sold? If the students sold 5 more dalandans, how many dalandans would they have sold in total? At the school fair, Grade 3 Kamagong learners sold 4 types of fruits. Here is the table. Fruits sold by Grade 3 Kamagong. Which fruit was sold the most? Which fruit was sold the least? How many more mangoes were sold than bananas? What is the total number of fruits sold? If the students sold 5 more dalandans, how many dalandans would they have sold in total? Here are the expected answers.